living to the love, intelligence, and power of God. By a man's words, deeds, and actions, he reveals whether he has as yet found the way. God exists in man as man's highest concept of perfection and comes forth through man's faith and works as a redeeming love, intelligence, and power. He who seeks a greater life will get in as his objective, does not seek life in trueness of spirit. So, as I read that, right, I remember listening to my mentor, Bob Proctor. And one of the things he had said was, he said, we have been programmed to be good little go-getters, right? As opposed being good little go-givers. Now, when he said go-getters, he was stating that that we have been brought up to basically see what we can get out of everything. Like, what is it for me? Let me try to get ahead. Let me do what I could do to get ahead. And I remember it was a point in my life, and I share this with you guys. It was a point in my life where, as though I felt like I needed to be doing something else, right? I didn't know exactly what that something else was, but for so long I was operating from, oh, let me see what I can get. Let me buy another pair of shoes. Let me just buy, more makeup. Let me just buy. And it was always everything about like, what can I get? You know? And me being in that state of what can I get only, it led to me feeling like frustrated, me experiencing depression, me knowing that feeling that it was more to life, and feeling is disconnect, right? Feeling is disconnect, feeling like, hey Anna, peace to you, baby, peace to you, and I haven't seen you lately. Me feeling like there is more to life, but I didn't know exactly how to go about it. And so I remember, I tell you guys, going through the veil being lifted just a little, going through the spiritual awakening and understanding that life isn't so much about what you can get. Life is about what you can give, right? Like we all here, all of us, each and every one of us, we have gifts within us, okay? And the gift within us is for us to give. So the other day, it was a guy on my Facebook page, and he sent me a message. And one of the things he sent was, he said, I have, basically, he was saying he has this gift, and he really wants to, give the gift out and be of service. But he said he's a little shy. Okay. Now, shy and faith, they don't live on the same block. Okay. Shyness and faith, they don't live on the same block. And as long as you keep on practicing these words, or I'm whatever you say after I am, honey, that's what you become. So as long as he keep on saying, he's shy and he's afraid, and I'm not saying to pretty much put your feelings or whatever it is up, push them under the rug. But what I am saying is for you to, dissect it. Why do you feel shy? Why do you, is it a programming that you was conditioned to believe when you was a child? Be shy, worry about so much what other people have to say, therefore you don't even extend your gift, you don't even give your gift. And and I sent him a message. I said, and he said to me, he said, you inspire me. And I said, it's people that you watch, right? And suppose if they didn't rock out to the thing that they was given, right? They give, they purpose. Suppose if they didn't do those things. Suppose if they said, you know what, I'm a little shy. You know what? Let me not do it. And I also told him, I said, your gift is not for you. Like the book, The Four Agreements with Don Miguel Ruiz. One of the things he says is, we get into this selfishness, thinking that me, is people that have brilliant gifts. They just brilliant, but they will not show up because they so focused on what people gonna think of them. They so focused on how people gonna see them. They so focused on whether people are going to like them or not. Not even understanding that people see you the way they see themselves. They see you the way they see themselves. So as long as you like, oh, you can't live life, you know. And I told you guys this, a while ago. I remember when I had watched this girl. We grew up together, and I watched her. She was doing Facebook lives. Right? She was speaking so comfortable on the bed, just talking to the people. And I remember here it was, me going to get my hair done every 2 weeks, me getting the fake nails, and doing all this stuff. And I remember I watched her and I said, dang, I was showing up acting like my don't stink, okay? Showing up as this persona, right? Like everything is perfect in my life, everything is all together, I got it all figured out. And when you show up enough like that, honey, it very exhausting. Okay, it's very exhausting. You get to the point where you get frustrated. I don't know or it all. Okay, your higher self knows it all, but in this physical form, you don't know it all. And so I remember watching her, the young lady, and I said to myself, I said, "Dag, how could she do these videos? How could she do these videos? How is it that she able to talk on the camera so freely?" And I was telling I if somebody would have told me about 8 years ago that I would have been doing this, I would have thought that they was hallucinating. Okay. If somebody would have told me about 8 years ago that I would have been going to the stores, recording myself, okay, going live, I would really have thought that they was hallucinating because one, I didn't see it. Okay, I didn't see, that part of you, the monkey in the mind is telling you you're not good enough, you're not qualified. What makes you think that you know this and all this other stuff? God is saying only thing you have to do is show up. Just show up. That's it. Just show up. And so the brother who sent me the message telling me, he really want to do it. He really something with music and stuff like that. He really want to do it, but he's shy. Suppose if I would have said, I really, really want to do, content. And let me tell you something. Content chose me. I didn't choose content because, at first, I never thought that I would be doing this. Never in a trillion years. I never thought I would be doing this. But I felt when I started doing the content, I felt like I had a message, like a gift. I wanted people to know that they didn't have to stay where they are. I wanted them to know that they didn't have to suffer, that suffering is actually a choice and pain is inevitable, and I wanted people to know that. And so I started showing up. I started showing up. And one of the reasons why you may not show up because you feel as though you don't deserve it. Or you feel like you don't deserve it, or you lack the confidence. It all stems back to confidence. That's why you may not show up. And there's so many people that give so many excuses. I told you guys the story of the young lady I met. I'm coming at a Dollar Tree in Bloomfield, New Jersey. I'm coming at a Dollar Tree. And this young lady, she goes to me. She says, "Oh my goodness, you make content? You make videos?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I've been wanting to do that for so long." All right, so why haven't you? "Oh, because, I don't have the right. I like she want to go shopping. She want to go shopping before she make the content. She want to make sure her house is, her house is aesthetically pleasing. She don't have the right phone. All these excuses." And I said to her, I say, "You don't have to do any of those things." I said, "You just got to show up." Isn't it funny how we tell ourselves all these lies? right? Like all these lies we tell her, oh, well, I have to have the right equipment. My apartment has to be aesthetically pleasing. And here God is saying, what you've been through, it was not for you. Here God is saying, only if you show up, you can have the palace. But you so caught up and selfish, worrying about what somebody else is going to think of you, worrying about if other people is going to like you, that you don't even show up. You more concerned about other people's perception of you as opposed of you changing your life. And the same people who you so concerned with, utterly concerned with about how they view you, their perception of you, you so caught up on them, and them people ain't doing nothing. They ain't paying your bills. They not doing anything. But you so concerned about how they view you. Everything that we have gone through and grew through, it was not for mainly for us. Because if you look back over your life, okay, and you say, oh my goodness, I experienced this in order to get here, right? But then you have a testimony that you can give. You have a testimony that you can give. And a lot of people don't give their testimony because, again, they so concerned about them. I love Lisa Nichols. Okay, I absolutely love Lisa Nichols because one of the things Lisa Nichols says is this. She says she has nothing to protect, defend, or hide. She would just show up every day. She have nothing to protect, defend, or hide. And if you're a person that feels like, well, you got to protect this, you have to hide this. You don't want people to know this. You don't want people to know whatever it is. You just don't want them to know them because of how they going to judge you. There's something in you that you should be doing right now, but you don't do it. Whether that's open a business, whether that's starting a YouTube channel or go starting content, it's something in you that you know you ought to do, but you don't do it. You keep on putting it off. You keep on putting it off. You keep on saying, oh, you know what? Not today. I got all these different things to do. I gotta look at this. I gotta look, and you try to disregard the thing that you need to face. Prime example. I remember so many content creators, they would say the same thing. They would say, look at your analytics, right? And it was so many times I used to be like, I don't want to look at my analytics. I just don't want to look at the analytics. I just want to produce. I just want to make content. Well, let me tell you something. It became frustrating. It became very frustrating because, as I'm just making content, when you just making content and the numbers not reflecting what you want them to reflect, it's called frustration. You become frustrated. And so what I started doing was I started paying attention to my analytics, right? And I never forgot this one particular time I was looking at my analytics on YouTube. And I would wonder, why would people drop off at a certain point on my YouTube, right? When they was watching the Dollar Tree horse or whatever video it was. And so what I noticed, because when I first started doing Dollar Tree horse, I would do talking, right? And that don't work so much when the people, they really want to, they there to see the products. Okay. So when you just talking, they don't want to really see it. They want to see products. And so I remember I had went through my analytics and I had seen like, oh, they stop off right here. And so what I started doing was I started going through, and nowadays I don't do the talking in the beginning. Well, I may say, something like, oh my goodness, something that'll pull a viewer's attention. Like, oh my goodness, you have to see the amazing items at Dollar Tree. I may do that. But before I would do talking, I would read books in the beginning, right? I was doing all this. And so once I seen that, what I started doing was I started studying. So it was like channels like Sean Cannell. It was so many different channels that I would watch. And they would say like the first 30 seconds of the video, you want to capture the viewer's attention. The first 30 seconds, you want to give them something, as though they want to watch the video. And so what I started doing was I started introducing like the products in the beginning. Okay, so I show a product and then maybe I do, like a oh my goodness, this is, you guys have to see this video, right? Like I thought, but if I wasn't looking at my analytics, I would have kept on doing the same exact thing. And then I started saying, like, why is my numbers looking a certain way? Right? And I would just keep producing content, making content, making content, making content. And then I started studying, okay? Studying, how can I increase my views? How could I become a better content creator? What can I do to keep the viewers, watching my videos longer, and all these different things. And so everything in life, you will always receive some type of feedback, okay? And it's up to you to look at that feedback and say, how can I improve? Imagine having a business and you're not paying attention to the numbers or anything. You just like, well, I'm gonna just keep on opening. I'm gonna just keep on opening my shop, and then like after a while you see people not coming, then it's a reason why people aren't coming. Maybe the marketing sucks, right? Maybe word of mouth, they don't know your business exists, right? So all of those things is for you to take a look at and see how you could become better, even in the sense with having children. Okay, one of the things, and this was like so taboo, we've been taught, don't ask the children how they feel, or what you can do better as a parent. It's so funny because the first person I heard say this was Lisa Nichols, and one of the things she said was she would ask her son, like, how do he feel about her being his mother, right? And when I first heard her say that, I said, who the hell asked a child that? Right? She's African American, like me. And I said, who the hell asked their children that? It was so taboo to ask your children, like, how you feel about me being your parent? Everything based upon, everything I do is right. You have no say. And, all this foolishness we may have heard growing up. And when I heard her say that, I said, oh my goodness, I judged it. And then it's so funny how sometimes you can think like, oh, you just a perfect parent, right? And your children have like a whole different story. And I remember I started doing that with my oldest children. And I would ask them, I would say, how do you feel about me being your parent? Well, my oldest son had a whole list, okay? Oh, you controlling, you don't really want me to do nothing. You don't really allow me to do things and stuff like that. And a part of me was due to my upbringing, very protective. Don't want the children to make their own decisions. You make the decision for them. And so that really don't work out in the real world, okay? You making your children's decisions for them, at times, yeah. But mainly making your children's decisions for them, that oftentimes mean that you think that they can't think for themselves, right? And so I remember asking my son this, and in the back of my mind, I was thinking like, oh my goodness. So if I start being lenient on my children, then that means that they're gonna run all over me, right? And so my son, he said everything, you controlling, you this, you that, you that. And I remember I said, you know what? We gonna meet in the middle. Okay, you said that you have, because when my oldest children would come home, I would be out of school. I would be like, you have to be home. Soon as you get out of school, come home. Right? Who else grew up like that? Right? But my oldest son said to me, he said, I can't even do nothing. I can't really hang out with my friends. Like I can't really do anything. And so I told him, I said, okay, so you said I am controlling. Hey Tracy, PC, baby, PC, PC. Hey Philip. Let me see. Hey Stacy. Okay, gang dog, PC baby. Yeah, so he said, I was controlling and stuff like that. So I said, okay, so we gonna meet in the middle. I'm gonna give you a curfew, right? And I gave him the curfew. And now this is going to allow me to see, if he really felt, and I know he really felt that I was controlling, because I was. At times I really was controlling, okay? And at times now I can step into the controlling, and it's for you to see, why you do what you do, not beat yourself up and say, oh my goodness, I don't do that, or, or be hard on yourself. Why do I do that? No, 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 no. Okay, it's about awareness. And so I gave them my oldest son and daughter, I gave them a curfew. And then I seen that he didn't want to even abide by the curfew. So what I told him, I said, all right, so you don't even want to abide by the curfew, right? You're saying I'm this, I'm that. You don't even want to abide by the curfew, right? And so then I will put him on punishment. And I never forgot this instant. One day, this was like when I started meditating and everything like that. And I remember one night I was meditating. My oldest son, he just left the house, and it was late. He left the house. I think it was like 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, and he left the house because he used to. The girl who he have my granddaughter from, she lived like across the street. And I remember he would sneak out of the house and go over to her house, right? And I remember one night I got up and I went in his room, right? Because at this time, both of my two boys, they were sharing a room, my oldest son and my youngest son. And so I goes in the room and I see that my oldest son is nowhere in sight. He just left, right? And so I locked the door, right? And then I meditated and I asked, I was like, why do I go through this, right? Because sometimes you may be getting frustrated when your children don't listen. You may get frustrated. And one of the things that came up was control and my meditation. So there I am. I'm sitting in the dark room. It's pitch black. And I put the question out, why do I experience this? And it just came back, control, right? And a lot of times you may experience what you experience because you are controlling, or and the reason you may be controlling because maybe you feel like these people, they will not be able to handle whatever situation it is. Who mainly do their helicopter parents. Like my children, they can't handle certain things in life, as if your child didn't come here by themselves. But anyway, my children can't handle certain things in life, so therefore I have to control every aspect of their life, because if I don't, they gonna just be a hot mess. But that really don't work, because then when you going dead, okay, when you transform into another body or whatever it is, when you leave, then your children have no other choice but to fend for themselves. Is this person that I know, right? And this person has a friend. And this friend that this person has, this friend, their friend is about 20 years old. And they can't do anything. The friend can't do anything. The friend could go, well, she could go outside, but she has to let her parents know exactly like where she going. I think she could probably go certain places or whatever. And when a person told me that, I said, how old is the person again? And the person said 20. I said, 20 years old. And so what would happen, because you're so strict or whatever it is. I think it needs to be a balance, that this person, when, her parents are gone or whatever, like, how would she be able to know to fend for herself if she's been constantly told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, right? And even with my children, I remember I used to speak for them, and I remember one time we had went to this mastermind, and it was my youngest son and my oldest daughter who accompanied me to this mastermind. And in a mastermind, It was probably about 10 or 15 of us, right, in this mastermind. And we went around in circle and stuff like that. And they was asking my children, questions and stuff like that. And so I started speaking for my oldest daughter. And I never forgot, it was a young lady who was there who was like, let her speak for herself. And honey, I was outraged. I was like, looking at her like, gave you the right to say something, right? And and then with my son, okay, my son, my youngest son, because I'd be like, oh my goodness, what if they say the wrong thing, or what if they don't answer it right, whatever, and they asked my youngest son a question. I was speaking for him too, right? And the lady said it. She said, you need to let them speak for themselves. And I again looked at her like, they not your damn children. But she was so right. Because it's times I'm not gonna be with my children 24/7. They go to school or whatever it is that they go, or people that they meet, they're gonna have to be able to communicate on their own. And as long as we are like, well, I have to intercede because, and you know what it really is? The reason why we tend to do that is because we like, oh my goodness, if my children get it wrong or if they don't know how to answer, the person is going to look at me and think that I failed as a parent. That's really what it is. Okay. That's, point blank period. That's really what it is. Okay. All right, family. So with that being said, make sure you guys rocking out, believing in yourselves. My intuition was like, go live, do a live. And at first I said, damn, do a live on what? Right. And then I picked up James Allen, Raymond Howell book, the 11 Forgotten Laws. And I said, okay, I could just, I opened one page and then I seen a little paragraph and I said, I can read this. And, so whenever your intuition is telling you something, you need to show up. Okay. Because there's a reason why it's telling you to show up. And with that being said, lovelies, make sure you guys are watching those Dollar Tree whores, right? Hype, like, comment, subscribe. That's it. 4 things. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe, and hype. That's it. That's all I ask. That's it. And if you guys are interested in the books that I read, okay, there's a link in my bio on here that you can order the books from Amazon. Super inexpensive, the books are, okay? But the information that you start receiving, because now you becoming aware, right? Like, why I do this or why I do that? How could I change my life and stuff like that? You don't have to buy the books, okay? There's other ways that you can find out why you do what you do, and there's other ways that you can make yourself aware. But if you're not even willing to see, why you do what you do, or willing to question, the decisions that you tend to make, then your life is, I could assure you, next year is going to be the same way. You can make all the New Year's resolutions that you want. If you're not willing to get uncomfortable and do something different, next year is going to be the same thing. I don't care how many New Year's resolutions you make. Okay, I can assure you next year is going to be the same, because you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to do something that scares you. You got to do something that freaks you out. Something that is abnormal, okay? It goes against the tradition. It goes against, if your family don't think that you're crazy, because I know damn well mine's that, beginning of this journey, woo, child, thought I was crazy, thought I was losing it. One of my cousins had said, I must be fell off the deep end. People I was working with, said, what happened to Deena? All these different things. If they don't think you're crazy, honey, you playing small. You playing too small. You playing really small, okay? They ought to think that something is going on with you. They may think you on, substance or something, okay? All right. They may think that something happened to you, a little loony, you're a little Looney Tune. They may think that, right? But as long as they thinking it, that goes to show that you are not confining no more to traditions, to the belief systems. You're not confining to that any longer. You're doing something different, something new. And it may also cause some static, okay? Because what gives you the right? We've been practicing this belief for so long, so many years. Our great 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 grandmother had installed this in us. What gives you the right to just show up and decide that you want something different, or decide that you're going to go against culture, or that you're going to go against the family tradition? So some static may come up, and be okay with it. Be okay with it. All right. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.